You had point systems, and you had so many points for so many months overseas or duty and what have you, and they say anybody that has more than 85 points gets out today, and you lose half your squadron, and then you go back a week later, and it's 80 points, so you lose maybe the other half. But it was a time when the whole nation was totally disarming, and yet we had the atomic bomb. We dropped 2 of them, as you remember. And then the Soviet Union began to do things. They put up the Iron Curtain, and then they began to fight on principle, not armed conflict. But it was known as the Cold War, as you remember. But here we were, the United States Air Force, and we had atomic weapons, but not very many of them. And the only airplane we had to deliver them at the time was a B-29. And they formed an outfit called the Strategic Air Command. And General Kenny started it, but then shortly after he had it, they gave it to General LeMay. Well, people have different ideas about General LeMay, but I want to tell you, he was the right man at the right time for that particular job, because we were faced with a period, again, of total disarmament. They had no confidence in our ability. They wouldn't even let us have nuclear weapons. They were in civilian storage areas, and if we were going to go to war, we'd have to go and check them out. And the only way we could get to war was to deploy overseas with the B-29s if we were going to fight the Soviet Union. And I'm told, and the man that told me was there, they had a commander's conference at Maxwell Field. I wasn't there. And General May was, and he went down, and it came time for he, as well as the others, to stand up and talk about their command. And he was prepared. He stood up and he said, well, he said, if we're going to go to war, we're going to lose some people, so I need from the training command the ability to train new crews, new people, new maintenance people, new troops at such and such a pace. And the commander of training command allegedly stood up and said, we can't do that, we don't have that capability. He said, well, I need to have air transport, I need to get people overseas because we're going to deploy forward. And I need so much airlift. And he spelled it out, he had charts, and they said, Commander of Airlift Command said, no, we can't do that, we don't have that capability. Well, he said, I'm going to need this fighter escort when we fly our bombers if we have to go to war. And the technical commander said, we don't have that many fighters, we can't do that. And so on. And so the story, and I believe it, he left, he quit the commander's conference and went straight to the president, President Truman at the time, and he said, Mr. President, if you want me to do this, I've got to have a priority, I've got to have the authority, and I've got to have a specified command. I'm not going to work for anybody except you. And SAC became a specified command. Most of the other commands were working under the Joint Chiefs, but SAC was a little separate. Now, a lot of people didn't like that in the Air Force because they lost some of their priority, but yet it was a remarkable thing that he did because he built this command, and we had the priorities to be able to get new airplanes, jet bombers. Gosh, we hadn't even known about that in World War II. And the B-47 came in, and then, of course, later the B-52. And he built this whole structure. And one of the things he said is we have to be a strong enough nation so that we can deter the Soviet Union. He used to, and you probably, maybe you've heard, he'd say he wanted to make sure that when the head of the Soviet Union woke up every morning and called up his commanders and said, is today the day? They'd say, no, not today. We can't go because SAC is so strong. Well, what makes a strength? How can you be strong? Well, there's several components. One is obviously you have to have the force. Well, he built the Strategic Air Command. We had the force. But you also have to have it professional and disciplined. And he was a good one for that. And he said we have to make sure that they know that we not only have the force, but that it's a capable force. He said, you also have to have the national will to use the force, if necessary, and the enemy has to know it. As an sidelight, I read a couple articles sometime that World War II was unnecessary if we'd been stronger and been able. See, Hitler at the time was, maybe he was crazy, but he wasn't stupid. Said that England would just fold and the United States would never go to war. And think if he thought the other way, he may have decided he'd never start World War II. And the Japanese thought that the United States had just all go into the Pacific, come back from the Pacific area into the continental United States, and we wouldn't put up any kind of a fight. They didn't measure our will correctly, but Lay's point was that we have to show that we have the will and the determination. So one of the things he said was we need an elite guard. He said we have to demonstrate professionalism and discipline to ourselves and to the world. To when people visit his SAC headquarters, he said they have to know it's a real military outfit, we know what we're doing, and we're able to do it. And so that's when he formed the elite guard. He said you have the authority to take anybody in the Strategic Air Command, and you can go out and pick them. Now, I wasn't very high up at that time, but whatever they did